Yo, what up? Welcome to Mo Boxing No Problem. I'm Jose Maria Jr. And today we got a special guest. We got pro boxer Ziyad Almaayouf. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah. Pronounce it right. Many people don't, but
Uh,
that's why I just go by Zizo. I said, just give it a name where people could catch on to.
yeah, Zizo is definitely much easier for especially for us Americans as well.
Exactly.
But Ziyad, thank you so much for making the time today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Every little interview like that is dreams of mine that I never get used to. So coming from where I come from, this is stuff wasn't supposed to happen.
Absolutely. Well, first question we got for you today is probably the question you get asked often, and is how did you get into boxing?
How I got it? Yeah, it is the question that I'm always asked, to be honest. But yeah, the story is really crazy. In the Arab world, back in Saudi, and I also have an Egyptian mother, so I was raised between both. It's not a specific sports gym for every single sport, so you don't have the boxing gym, the tennis academy, or the football fields. It's just one big sports center. Think of it as like a country club where people would go, and then you have all the sports there, and you get to see everybody training in their own designated area. And every single sport has its own designated area with its own equipment, and its own coaches and stuff. And all the sports had it. Tennis had it, soccer had it, basketball had it, swimming had it. But the one sport that didn't have it was boxing.
Hmm.
Boxing didn't have a designated area, and it didn't have equipment. What it had was a coach standing on the running track with his mitts, and the people are lined up waiting for their turn. So I used to play tennis. My dad is a huge fan of tennis, and I'm a huge fan of tennis. And I used to play tennis. I was at that point I was 7, 8 years old. And every time we'd warm up for tennis before we headed to the courts, we'd go to the running track. And so this is where we used to do the speed drills, the reflex drills, and there I would just see and hear really the intensity and the motivation and the coach's voice and the fighters. And I was like, maybe this is what I want to do. When you're young, you really look for that self-value.
Right.
As a kid, you always look for self-value. You always look for that thing that's gonna make you cool. So I thought to myself, this is something that I really want to do. I like that intensity, that motivation, and I would be that kid that boxes. No, it's something that nobody does, not a lot of people do, and yeah, it's something that I went back and I spoke to my parents about, and then of course the first response was a no, and but my dad was always traveling back and forth for work. So yeah, then I spoke to my mom about it, and my mom took me behind my dad's back for a year until my dad went one day to pick up his son from tennis practice, and he didn't
It was
find
a
him.
tennis.
Yeah, exactly. But this is how I got into it. It was just like I feel like it was more of what it was that kept me in it that really has driven me to where I am now.
No, great backstory. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And we spoke on your nickname, Zizo. How is it that the backstory for that? How did you end up getting that?
I mean, in the Arab world, to be honest with you, anybody who has a Z in their name is nicknamed Zizo. But I was always starting up into my pro journey. And when I first moved to the States to pursue my boxing career, I just thought to myself, from a marketing standpoint, and from a branding standpoint, which is a big thing that fighters need to focus on right now. It's like I want that name that's gonna stick, and it's a name that it's unheard of, especially to the Western audience. So it's people that if they're not gonna remember you for the fighting, maybe they remember you for the name. And if they like your name, they're gonna like your fighting. So it's a lot of stuff that went into it, but it's been my nickname since I was a kid, and just using it in the boxing world is where I thought from a marketing and branding strategy, it's what I need to go to.
Yeah, yeah, definitely it stands out here. So
Yeah.
good choice, good choice. And then can you tell us about your amateur career? What were your major accomplishments from back then?
So in terms of my amateur career, I didn't really have an amateur career. Just because it's something that we're still working on in the Arab world. Saudi Arabia is really progressing in right now, where when I was an amateur, we had 4 tournaments a year, 3 to 4 tournaments a
Oh,
year.
wow.
And if you were the best, the top fighter in your country, in the amateurs in the Arab world, you would be lucky if you got 15 fights a year. Because if you're saying each tournament has 4 fights in them, if you make it to the finals or
Hmm.
make it to the semifinals, so you're maybe getting 15 to 20 fights a whole year. Here in the States or in Europe or anywhere else, you have fights every weekend. Every other weekend there's an amateur show going on. There are amateur fights going on. So you have people that have banked so many more rounds and so much more experience facing different styles and different looks than we have in the Arab world and in Saudi Arabia. So in terms of amateur experience, I always say I've been boxing since 2010,
Hmm.
but I've really been boxing since 2019 when I first moved to the States to pursue my boxing journey in a more serious way and to be pro. Because when I first moved here, I was banking the national championships, the state championships back home. But then when I moved to the States, it was like I started over.
Hmm.
It was completely different. I was getting my behind handed to me on a golden platter every single sparring session for maybe more than a year, and it was just a shock, because now you get the fighters who are sitting down on their punches. Now you get the fighters who, before they throw their shots, they know what you might throw back, and they know what they're gonna throw after that as well. And then now you also get the fighters who go to the body. In the Arab world, in case you didn't know, we don't go to the body.
Oh, wow.
In the amateur system, the first time I ever learned how to throw a proper body shot was when I moved to the States, 9 years after I had started boxing. Can you imagine that? So it's like a body shot that's not a straight right hand to the body. If you're talking about staying inside, and digging the body, nobody has ever taught me that when I was boxing back home between Saudi and Egypt. But when I moved to the States, everything changed from there. So, oh man, when I first moved, it was just I was green. It was the broken ribs, the fractured whatever bone in your body that's not supposed to get fractured, and it's the fractured jaws, the hands. So it's all that from just trying to be even as close as good as the amateurs here. Then COVID hit, and then I had to start sparring the pros without even being as good as the amateurs here, because amateur gyms were pretty much done for. And the
Right.
only people who were still working were the pros. And I had to keep working because to me that was a blessing. I wanted the world to stop because I needed to catch up. So when I started sparring the pros, it was a completely different ball game.
Yeah, and if I recall correctly, I think it was during COVID where you also kind of linked up with Buddy McCurt as well, right? And started training with
Oh
Buddy.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I was like training with him, here in California.
Oh, it's a dream. It's a dream. I always say me linking up with Coach Buddy is where the stars aligned, because I have videos in my college dorm room when I first moved to the States, where I was with my coach, my old coach from back then, who he saw that I have a good jab, and he told me, I want you to study the jab of Buddy McGirt. I didn't know who Buddy McGirt was then, but
Hmm.
then I have videos at 2 and 3 a.m. with my roommate sleeping, but I had the TV on and I'm studying Buddy McGird's jab. And I haven't mentioned on Instagram since like 2019 of best jab in boxing, Buddy McGird. Best jab in boxing, Buddy McGird. Not knowing Buddy McGird was someone who was in LA at that time, not knowing that he was even a coach. I just knew Buddy McGird, the fighter, and Buddy McGird that had a very good jab. So I'd study his jab over and over and over and try to imitate it until one day when the gyms shut down, we were preparing for the Olympics at the time. I wanted to be the first Saudi ever to go to the Olympics for boxing. And my coach said, okay, we have to start finding another gym. I think I know a gym. He's like, it's up in the valley in California. I'm like, okay. He's like, let's go. And I go into the gym. First week, it's just a normal gym, you know. And then the second week, in walks in somebody who is so loud, you know, joking with everybody, talking with everybody. And I'm asking my coach, who's that? You know? And he says, that's Buddy. I was like, Buddy who? He's like, Buddy McGirt. I'm like, that's Buddy McGirt? He's like, yeah. I'm like, the guy you tell me to study all the time? He's like, yeah. So I met Buddy years after I've been studying and studying and studying him. But what are the chances to meet, you know, such a great coach after studying him for such a long time, and a coach that's become, you know, more of a father figure now.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely a great story. The stars align with that one.
Yeah. No, really, honestly, it's crazy when you look back at it. It's crazy when you look back at it from just the point of, you know, not knowing, you know, that he was even in LA, and Buddy lives right now in Florida. So he was in LA for just camps for other fighters. So for us to meet, when I saw the opportunity, after working and sparring with his guys and seeing how he is in the corner with his guys, when I saw the opportunity to ask him be my coach, to ask my idol to be my coach, I had to take it.
Yeah, nothing better than that.
And
And see, as we mentioned, there's a kind of a lot of resets in your career. You're finally ready to turn pro, but there's cancellations. The fight's not happening. But finally, August 2022 in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, on the Usyk Joshua 2 undercard, you make your pro debut. You're making your ring walk. What are your emotions heading to your first pro fight?
you know, it was crazy because I had three canceled fights before making it to my fourth fight, which happened to me my debut. One of them actually got canceled in the locker room. You know what I mean? Like in the dressing room, I have my fight outfit on, and the guy goes and declares his own drug test to the California State Commission, and he says I smoked weed last night. So it was just at that point where I was like, something isn't right, you know, somebody doesn't want me making that debut. And it was God, you know, God didn't want me making that debut at that time, because only after it by a few months was when Saudi first ever got in contact with me. People might think that Saudi has, you know, um, been involved in my career, my whole boxing career and stuff. No, but right after that cancellation, a few months before the Usyk Joshua fight, that's when Saudi first contacted me after seeing my videos on social media, and after Saudi, you know, picked boxing as the sport that they want to, you know, take over in.
Hmm.
And they saw that they have one of their own. They have a star of their own that's building, that's progressing, and is waiting for an opportunity. And they gave me nothing less than that. They gave me a lot more than what I could have, you know, asked and wished for. But going into that debut, you know, making that ring walk, I remember I had I don't know if you know him from WWE. I had Braun Strowman.
Oh
Had
yeah,
him,
I know.
yeah, I had him in my locker room, and I had my PR and manager at the time, Rachel Charles. She told me I want Braun Strowman there. I was like, why are we gonna have Braun Strowman there? She was like, trust me, he's an amazing guy. It's a good connection to have, and you're gonna want someone like that in your locker room when it's about to fight. I'm like, okay. And having Braun Strowman there was the best thing that could have happened before making my debut in front of thousands and thousands of people in a full arena. You know, me being the Saudi guy, the first ever, the only one, and everybody's relying on me. And I've talked that talk. Now it's time to walk that walk. And Braun Strowman told me, I want you to think about, you know, just that this moment's only going to happen once, and don't let the size of the occasion make you forget the small moments that you need to live through. So he told me, I'm always performing in front of thousands and thousands of people, but I want you to take a moment there to close your eyes and just listen to everybody, look around, enjoy the people who are there, enjoy your family who are waiting for you. He's like, don't let the pressure and stress take away that moment. You want to look back and be like, I enjoyed that moment. And that's what I did. Now, and until today, every time my name is being announced, I close my eyes and I raise my hands up and I just look up with my eyes closed. That's something that came from Braun Strowman, because that's my close my eyes moment and just acknowledge that I'm here, I'm standing in that ring. I listen to everybody. I don't want to see everybody, because when I listen to them, I feel like they're millions and not thousands, you know? So he really gave me that moment. So walking in, it was just confidence, confidence in what God has written for me, more than what the result is going to be.
Absolutely. Great perspective. I'd like to bring in now my co-host Seek. Thanks for joining Seek.
Hey, how's it going? How's it going, Zia? I mean, I'm currently on the go, so I don't have the questions, but I'll be here in the background.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Awesome. So next question, as we mentioned, your career has been one of first. You're the first athlete signed to Skill Challenge Promotions, first ever Saudi Arabian boxer to win a professional fight, and also first Saudi fighter to compete at the O2 Arena in London. And I'm
Yeah.
sure there's other first time missing there, but what does it mean to you to be making history and being a trailblazer for all the Saudi Arabia boxers coming up in the sport?
So, it's of course just being put in the position of being the first to do so many things is a huge privilege, and with that comes as much pressure, but the privilege comes first. And it's amazing to be the first to do this and that. And I want to be the first world champion, the first unified, the first undisputed. I want to be the first to do this, but what's most important is to be the first of many. You know what I mean? The more important part is to open the door to the fighters who are building now, who are gonna come out in 5, 10 years maybe, and they could say, how am I gonna cope with the pressures, or how am I gonna cope with us being new in the game? Then they look at Zizo and they could be like, he did it. How did he do it? I want to do it exactly like him. I want to do it better than him. This is where it is very important. And of course, this all comes down and falls back onto Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where they gave me the opportunity, without really testing where I am, where I stand. They just saw, that there's a fighter and how hard he works, and they gave me the opportunity based on that. And of course, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and the work that's being done by the Ministry of Sports, His Royal Highness Prince Abdulaziz bin Turki Al Faisal, and now the work being done now by His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh. It's stuff that I feel like Saudi Arabia right now is on a race of its own. They're just competing with themselves. This isn't a race where other people are gonna come and start sprinting with you to the finish line, because it's really being done different. And especially when you're on ground and you're seeing the work that is being done by His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh in Riyadh season, you're like, I didn't imagine boxing to ever do that. You see that stuff in the Super Bowl. You see that stuff in the Champions League final. The shows, the artists who are coming, all of that stuff. And now finally boxing is back getting the fruits of the labor, because people don't understand how how much that falls on the back on the back of the fighters and the promoters getting the fights made and ready. But yeah, again, just being the first to do so many things, it's more important to be the first of many, and to set that blueprint on how to do it so they could do it better, because they're going to be coming from a more stable process, and a more stable, building process. Let me put it that way. But I always have to say that I'm in the position, or we are in the position that we are in now, second because I'm a good boxer, and first because I'm trying to be a good person. That's how I feel God gives people what they deserve. That's how I feel how the universe and God, whatever you believe in, gives you the position you deserve to be in, by just trying to be a good person, trying to be a good example, trying to be a good inspiration, a good symbol of hope to people around you, to people who are going to come after you, then comes how good you actually are at the field in what you're doing. And we've seen it so many times. We've seen the most talented fighters who didn't have the work ethic or didn't have the personality or the character not make it. And then we've seen the hard workers who had the character and the morals really make it, because it's at the end of the day, greatness is about inspiring those around you, not about what you achieve.
Very well said. And you'll be back in the ring on March 8th on Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Another big card, the Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou card. How's training camp been going for your upcoming fight?
Oh, it's been great. It's been great. Like I was saying before we started the interview, the best place to really prepare for a big fight like this one is LA. I feel like Los Angeles training camps are very, very different than other ones just because of, the sparring, really. And it's the sparring not because of how tough the fighters may be, but because of the variations you're gonna find in LA. Not only are they former Olympians or former world champions or this and that, but all the types of sparring variations are in LA. The fast punch, the fast puncher, the strong puncher, the southpaw, the orthodox, the tall, the short, the pressure fighter, the boxer, they're all in LA, and they all give you that work. LA is about real dog work. And
Yes, sir.
yeah, and this is where I believe, the best training camps are here to have. Some people might talk about the distractions, but if you're at the right gyms, they're not around any of the distractions. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like if you're around the right type of fighters, the right type of coaches, you're not around any of the distractions. You're hours away from really what LA is. But
Yeah.
it's
I
about
am.
getting that work, getting that work.
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty sure. I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure Jose mentioned to you, but I live in LA, bro. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
know
yeah,
there's plenty of gyms and
exactly,
that there's a lot of gyms I've been invited to, but it's just the time. Like there's too many gyms out here and different weight classes and like you
exactly.
said, Yes, sir. But I hear on I agree with you.
Yeah, so the variation is very important, and the preparations have been going very well. The weight has been going good, and like I said, again, I'm just enjoying and embracing the process. I'm a fighter that's coming up very, very differently than what other fighters who are coming up might go through. People are seeing the big cards, people are seeing the big fights, but you don't see what's happening behind the scenes. How I am the type of fighter that most of my improvements, because of the background I've come up through, because of I'll say the the weaker amateur background in terms of opportunity. I'm a fighter that has to improve every single round of every single sparring session and every single round of every single fight. So it's a lot of pressure being the first ever Saudi and the only Saudi and the one that the flag bearer for a country, especially the way the country is doing it now. You really have to match that energy.
Right.
And I honestly love that pressure. So it's like I love that pressure that's on me, but make no mistake, it's pressure that needs to be well handled, and it's pressure that equates to a no quit attitude and hard work, because it's a winner win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a do or die for real. It's like you don't have the other options. So it is a pressure and a privilege to be in that position, but we're focused. That focus goes into the work I put, the coaches I work with, and what better coach to work with than Buddy McGirt,
Right.
who's a person who's been there, done that, and exactly at the weight classes I want to do it in. So he's just a great coach to really just trust the process with. No matter how you look one week or the other, you know that he's got you after God.
And then continue the conversation on March 8th. Has your opponent been finalized already for that fight?
I don't know. I know
No.
there are options. They speak about options, but you know, it's the closer you get to the fight, the less you really start asking and worrying about your opponents and stuff. And especially Coach Buddy, he says something to me. He says, if you're gonna worry about the opponents at this stage of your career, he's like, then you're not in the right career. You know
Mm,
what I mean?
yeah.
It's if you're gonna worry about and stress about opponents in your first few fights in your learning fights, then you're gonna really be worrying about your opponents later on when you're starting to fight the rankings and climbing up that ladder. But again, you know, it's all about just being the best I can be, being the best I can be, improving what I need to improve on, working on what I need to work on, and whatever the opponent will bring the first round, he'll bring for the rest of the night. So then we'll see what happens then.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have a lot of boxers to come on, especially at this stage, that say, I just focus on myself and improving, my skill set. I'll fight anybody.
Exactly. But of course, it wasn't like that for me in the beginning, you know.
Yeah.
But this is now a more experienced going into my fifth fight where you realize, you know what? The better you start getting at the gym, the more you start to improve, and the you know the better you really just start being, the more confidence you have in yourself, and the more confidence you have in figuring out whatever the opponent is going to show you the first round. Whatever he's done in his past fights isn't going to be necessarily what he's going to do in your fight. You know what I mean? So to know your opponent and to watch tape on him and all that, that's all good. But if you plan around it, then you might find yourself in a very difficult situation fight night. Because you know, even in sparring session, I might spar one guy today and I could you know get the better of him. The next day he's gonna get my number. He's gonna get the better of me times two. You know,
Right.
so that's how you think about it in the fight as well. You know, if you visualize and you start really working on your mentality, then you start thinking, you know what, the fight is no different than that. What the opponent has shown before isn't what really he will have to show me on fight night. So Buddy always says if he shows you something in the first round and it's working for him, he's gonna keep doing it. So that's what we plan on.
There you go. And speaking of sparring and other fighters, who's been the hardest puncher you've been in the ring with, either in sparring or in a pro fight?
The hardest puncher I've been with, there are two people. One guy is called Frankie Stringer. He's from Liverpool, actually, in the UK. He's a very hard puncher, to be honest, and it's more of the accuracy of his punches. I feel like the fighters who are accurate with their punches, these are the real punches because it hurts more than a punch that actually hurts. You know, when it's real accurate, that's where you really feel it. And there's another fighter called Marco Check Diaz. He's from Florida. He's from Florida, and he used to train in LA. He's not around LA now anymore. I believe in Florida, but two of the hardest punches I've definitely faced, especially Czech. His punches were bombs.
Those are the
Punches were
sessions where
bombs.
you're focusing more on defense. Like you don't want to get hit by those too many.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know what? It's like you say, it's the closest to death. It's the closest to death you'll get. You know what I mean? And you know, a lot of these sparring sessions, like I told you, when I first moved to the US, it was about pure survival. Just again, we had the 3, 4 amateur tournaments a year, 15 maximum 20 fights. If you're the top fighter, I'm telling you, if you're the guy that makes it to the final of every single tournament, you're fighting 15 to 20 times a year, you know? So you're not getting that different variation, you're not getting the rounds, you're not getting the experience you need. So when I first moved here, it was the first time seeing a lot of stuff, but I'm just embracing it all, man. You know, it's a blessing to be in the position I'm in now. I'm fighting on the big cards. I get to showcase people my personality, which plays a huge part in my career. You know, the charisma, the enthusiasm, be a big part of that Vision 2030 in Saudi, support the athletes and empower that youth. So it's all like I say, it's a larger than life story. I feel like it's a bigger than boxing story sometimes, and with each generation comes the power puncher, the fast puncher, the boxer, the this and that. But every other generation, you get that Manny Pacquiao, You know what I mean? How Pacquiao was for the Philippines, or how any other fighters were to their country, or a Miguel Cotto, for example, all of that, a Chavez for Mexico, you get that. I believe this is what Zizo is for Saudi Arabia in this generation of fighters, where it's a bigger than boxing story, and it's larger than life story.
Yeah, absolutely. And growing up, who was your favorite boxer?
Growing up, of course, it had to be Muhammad Ali. Just
Mhm.
because you resonate with the name, you resonate with what he did outside of boxing more than he did inside of boxing. We never saw Ali's prime. We only saw a young Ali and we saw old Ali, but that prime, he wasn't, he was suspended, so he
Right.
wasn't free fighting. But it's what he did outside of boxing that really made him my idol, because it's what I wanted to do. Because you imagine if you're a fighter, an Arab fighter, a Saudi Arabian fighter, when you're young and you're Googling Saudi fighters and you find nothing. You're Googling, Saudi professional fighters that you want to be like, and you find nothing. And then you go like, I want to do that. But in order to do that, I need to be so much bigger outside of the sport and touch as many lives as I want, as I can, so I could improve so many other people's lives as much as I can. Because first you become the boxer, then you become the athlete, then you become the figure. And everybody's goal should be to become that figure, because again, this is what greatness is in the inspiration, and with the inspiration, that's your biggest achievement, more than the titles, more than the how many people can tell you how many world titles Muhammad Ali had, or how many times he won that world title. No, not a lot of people outside of boxing can tell you,
Mhm.
but everybody outside of boxing can tell you who Muhammad Ali is, and who Muhammad Ali was, or what he did for the people, because this is what greatness is, because of how he inspired others. So of course, he is who my favorite fighter is, and still was and still is. But right now, honestly, it's Buddy McGirt. Buddy McGirt, the fighter. He is my
Yeah.
coach now, but just the way I'm fighting, the changes I've made, the improvements I've made, and the new defense we have that not many people are bringing back to boxing. It's just stuff that he used to do, and that's why he's an idol of a fighter right now. And I watch his tapes every day.
Absolutely. Yeah, as I mentioned, I think a lot has to do with just the personality and how they are outside the ring. They
Yeah,
just really resonates with the people and gets them remembered.
of
Mhm.
course,
Yeah.
exactly. That's the
Uh,
goal.
so now we're talking about present day. This next question is very subjective. A lot of names get brought up in this list, but in your opinion, who's the number one pound for pound fighter today?
Pound for pound, Terence Crawford.
It's Crawford.
I don't think it should be an argument. you know, I don't think it should be an argument for me. I feel like Terence Crawford right now, because pound for pound is, if that guy had the size and had the weight in that specific weight class, would he beat the other guys? And the answer is always yes from Terence Crawford. If he was as small as Inoue or as big as Tyson Fury, with the style he has now and the way he just is so smart inside the ring, the switching, and the leverage that he has behind his punches. We've seen an insane jab in the Spence fight, with every jab was a stinging jab. It's the IQ really though that makes him right there, and his genetics and all of that stuff is stuff that you need to talk about when you talk about athletes and boxers. And I just feel like he's the number one pound for pound today.
Yeah, no, that's who I have in mind, number one as well. We get Inoue, Canelo. What are names have we got, Zeke, recently? For that question.
For pound for pound, I think the top ones, yeah, pretty much you know it. Canelo, Crawford, Usyk,
Usyk, Sobot, yep.
uh,
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Usyk, Fury, um, the top ones. Yeah, you could talk about Jesse Rodriguez, Bam Bam.
yeah. Bam
Mhm.
Rodriguez, yeah, Bam
Yeah,
Rodriguez is up
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
a lot of talent pool, but yeah, I agree with your pick there.
yes,
For
sir.
the next segment, I want to pick your brain and ask you about some matchups. These are all confirmed, and I want you to tell me who you think is going to win and how. If it's too close to call, you can say 50-50, or you can also just pass as well.
All right.
All right. First one we got for you. This is the card you're going to be fighting under. Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou. How do you see that fight playing out?
I think Anthony Joshua takes that one. Yeah, I feel like it's a better, like a different build than Tyson Fury, a different fight. And I feel like Joshua's finding himself under Ben Davidson again. And they call Ben Davidson's team the FBI of boxing. You know, you
Hmm.
don't understand these guys behind the scene, they dissect the opponent in ways that, like, they got a guy specialized of like just studying tape in in ways that I haven't seen people study tape before. So they are the FBI of boxing, but we'll see. We'll see if it's AJ's night, it's gonna be an easy night.
Absolutely. Next one I want to ask you about is Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia.
Think Devin Haney takes that one.
Mhm.
I feel like Devin Haney, it all comes behind his jab. I love Devin Haney's jab right now. And I feel like the leap that was made by Devin Haney after the Linares fight is something fighters should really just look up to. Young fighters, up and coming, should look up to as inspiration. You know, that Linares fight, after that fight, Devin Haney made tremendous changes, you know, in his jab and in his strategies and just the way of what he accomplished at what age he did it and who he's fighting doing it. You can call it what you call it, the easy route, whatever it is. The resume speaks for itself. It doesn't matter if you took the easy route or what others might call the easy route to titles or undisputed or whatever, but look at who you're fighting right now and look at what you accomplished and when you accomplished it. That's what I feel like. And in boxing, at the highest level where Devin Haney and the opponents he's faced are people and the general boxing fans need to understand there is no easy route. There is no easy route. At the highest level, everybody is at the highest level for a reason. You
Hmm.
know, and the opponents fighting Devin Haney at that time and the opponents that, you know, Devin Haney is fighting at that time, they're fighting each other for a reason because it's the highest level. So at the highest level, the only thing that is different is who is the better man on that night.
Hmm.
And Devin Haney has been proving it, you know, over and over. So I think Devin is going to take that fight just because maybe the discipline and the IQ and the experience of being in there with the better guys.
Yeah, I know he's definitely a throwback fighter that just has bet on himself. I mean, he took less money to go to Australia twice
Exactly.
to fight for
Exactly. Why?
undisputed. So.
I mean, it's tough. Again, the general boxing fans won't know. Imagine the pressure on you. Like I'm fighting home right now,
Mhm.
and there's tremendous pressure on me just because of the story and how many people are gonna be there. And but I'm fighting at home at the end of the day. So imagine doing that, but in a stadium. It was a Marvel Stadium in Australia or New Zealand or wherever it was, and people that don't like you, don't want you there, you know. So the pressure was insane.
Absolutely. And staying with kind of the highest level, we got the undisputed heavyweight fight coming up. Alexander Usyk versus Tyson Fury. How do you see that one?
Um, it's one of those fights where I'm just gonna say it's whoever's night at what it is, to be
Mhm.
honest. Whoever is better prepared mentally for that fight is gonna take it that night. You know, it's a really high level fight, and the better man on the night will win. You know, they're both great fighters. They're both very good when it's their own night, but they're both very also, you know, tricky when it's not their night. So you never know what version is going to show up. We'll see.
And then the last fight I want to ask you about is another one that we got to thank Saudi Arabia for making it happen. Artur Beterbiev versus Dimitri Bivol. How do you
Oh,
see that one?
that's the fight. I feel like that's a true 50-50, to be
Yeah.
honest. That's a true 50-50 fight because you could go back and forth in your head for as long as you want. You could say, but Beterbiev is going to keep coming forward. Then you could say, oh, but Bivol is going to have that distance with the straight punch combinations. Beterbiev is not going to care. He's going to keep coming forward. Bivol is going to catch him, you know? So it's like you keep
Yeah.
going, rebounding back and forth.
Yeah, and then there's the age too. People saying like it's better be gonna age overnight. He's up there.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so yeah, definitely 50-50. Coming back to you, what are some things you like to do outside of boxing? Some of your interests and hobbies?
I'm a very like a creative person, so I like movies. shows, but I like the cinematography of it, how it was directed or the acting in it. That's why I like drama, true stories and stuff like that, just to see how they turned that true story into a show or a movie and how the acting was. That's what I like. I like to just enjoy movies and shows, but that's when I'm in camp and I'm alone, but out of camp, I just like to be with my family, man. I'm a very family-oriented person. Grew up around a big family from my mom and my dad's side. My mom has 11 siblings. My dad has 8. I have 9. So we were a very, one of those families where dinner together is a must every single day at the grandmother's house. It's a very Arab-centered thing, but that's what I love to do when I'm out of camp, just be around the family as much as I can because when I leave, it's time to go someplace else.
Yep.
Damn, you guys are a lot, bro. Just like the Mexican
Yeah,
style.
exactly. It's
That's
time
good.
to uh,
And see how you've learned the sport, from scratch. There wasn't a blueprint for you to follow, but now that you've had 4 fights as a pro, what's the best piece of advice you would give someone who's thinking about going pro and making a career out of boxing?
time is your ally. Time is your ally. It's trust the process and just be patient. And every single time you feel like you don't have time, you're just either focused on the future or the past. That's when we feel like we don't have time. But really, if you're focused on the present, you always have time. So it's just like just trusting the process and knowing that time is your ally and take it bit by bit. The improvements are gonna come when they come. Don't like comparison is the enemy of success, to be honest. So you're on your own journey in your own time. You have your own attributes, your own character, your own morals, but my biggest piece of advice would be to be a good person first, then focus on being the good fighter, the good boxer, because before you expect the best thing to happen for you, you need to be the best version of yourself, or you need to be trying to be the best version of yourself before it happens to you. So that would be my biggest piece of advice.
Great advice. And the final question we got for you is not really a question, it's opening up the floor. What's the message you want to send to your fans and supporters?
Just tune in for the improvements, tune in for the different new style that Buddy is really putting into me. We're bringing back that cross arm defense in the lightweight divisions, and it's something that we haven't seen in a long time. It's something that really works very, very well for me with my style, with how, with my attributes, my style, how my stance is, how good my jab is. That cross arm defense is something that I feel like will make a lot of people happy, bring that old school boxing back. But again, just just put the hopes and put your inspirations and put everything on me because this is a larger than life story. If you have something that you want to do, you feel like it's impossible to do. There's nothing that was more impossible to do than a Saudi Arabian local Arab fighter to make it to professional boxing on a global stage like this one. So if that could be done, you could do anything.
I
For
mean,
sure.
at this rate, with the Los Angeles, connections, this may become a movie down the road.
Oh, that's the law of attraction. That's what I'm praying for. That's why I like the true stories. Like I tell you, I keep watching those documentaries and the
Yeah.
movies and everything
Mhm.
because one day I wish I'd get my own Netflix documentary.
Yeah, and then you get to pick the actor who plays you.
Exactly. Let's see what that.
That'd be awesome. Well, before we let you go, Ziad, can you go ahead and drop your social media? Where can people find you?
You can find me on The Real Zizo on Instagram, The Real Zizo, Zizo. And yeah, I'll see you guys in a few weeks.
Almost
Yes,
that
sir.
time. Well, thank you so much again for the interview. It was a pleasure to
Thank
talk
you for
boxing,
having me.
and we'll be
Appreciate it.
tuning in on March 8th.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me the platform and opportunity. Like I told you, dreams, you never get used to living them. And just doing these small stuff, I appreciate them. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Likewise. All right, enjoy the rest of your day. Have a
All
great
right.
evening.
All right. See you.
All
Bye.
right, bye.